Young millionaire rushed to marry a homeless girl to escape a forced wedding, unaware she hid a shocking secret. Hello, everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. IT is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now let us return to our main character. The rain poured down like silver threads against a glowing skyline of New York City. Ethan Blake's polished shoes splashed through puddles as he sprinted out of the hotel ballroom, his bow tie hanging loose, the sound of his father's furious voice echoing behind him. Ethan, you cannot walk away from this deal. But Ethan did not turn back. He ran until the golden marble lights of the engagement party vanished into the blur of the storm. He stopped beneath the awning of an empty bus shelter, catching his breath. Rain dripping from his dark hair onto his tuxedo collar. For the first time in years, the billionaire, who owned half of Manhattan, looked lost. He pressed his palms against his knees, gasping for air, muttering to himself. An arranged marriage, a merger disguised as love. What am I even doing? Lightning cracked across the night, and that was when he saw her. A young woman huddled near the bench, knees drawn to her chest, a blanket of soaked cardboard shielding her from the wind. Her clothes were worn thin, her sneakers torn at the edges, and yet her eyes wide, alert, defiant, met his without fear. She looked about 26, maybe 27, too young to already have that kind of tiredness in her face. He hesitated, guilt stabbing through the adrenaline, still racing in his veins. I am sorry, he said, lowering his voice. I did not mean to scare you. You did not, she replied, pulling her blanket tighter. People usually do not notice me at all. Her voice was but steady, and for a strange reason, it held him there. Ethan's phone buzzed again. His father's name flashed across the screen. He let the phone keep ringing, rain streaking down his wrist. When the call ended, he laughed softly to himself, a hollow, bitter sound. You know what? Maybe that is the problem, he murmured. Everyone notices only what I am worth. The girl tilted her head. And what is that supposed to mean? He looked at her, then really looked, and an idea sparked, reckless, absurd, but alive. Miss, what is your name? Maya, she said cautiously. Maya Collins. He nodded once, as if sealing a silent decision. Mia, do you believe in luck? She gave a tired half smile. Not lately. He reached into his jacket, pulled out a velvet ring box, the one meant for his fiancée, and held it out in front of her, rain glistening off the metal clasp. What if I told you that right now this could change both of our lives? Mia blinked in disbelief. What are you doing? He took a step closer, water dripping from his sleeves. Marry me, he said quietly. Just for a week, 2 are for a heartbeat. The city fell silent except for the rain. Mia stared at him as if he had lost his mind. You are crazy, she whispered. You do not even know me. You are right, Ethan said, his tone calm now, almost pleading. But I need someone who is not part of their world. Someone real. I will make it worth your while. She hesitated, eyes darting to the ring box, to his trembling hands, to the storm swirling behind him. Her stomach growled softly, a reminder of the hunger that had followed her for days. Maybe this was madness, but so was sleeping on cold concrete every night. Why me? She asked. Because you are the first person tonight who looked at me without seeing my name, he answered. Thunder rolled overhead. Ethan opened the box. The diamond caught a flash of lightning and threw it back in 100 directions. Mia's breath hitched. He extended his hand toward her. 7 days. A contract marriage. No strings, no lies, just an escape. Mia looked at the ring again, then up at the stranger who was offering it. And for reasons she could not explain, she reached out and took it. The rain kept falling, washing the city clean, as somewhere in the distance, the bells of midnight began to toll softly across the city. Rain-soaked streets faded into dawn, and by the time the first light touched the glass towers of Manhattan, Ethan Blake was no longer running. He was sitting across from Mia in a small 24-hour diner near the river, steam rising from 2 untouched cups of coffee. His tuxedo jacket hung over the back of the chair, and her damp blanket had been replaced by a gray hoodie he had bought from the corner store. Neither spoke for a long time. The sound of plates clinking and the low hum of a radio filled the silence between them. Finally, Mia broke it. "So, you were serious?" she said, staring at the ring still sitting on the table between them. Ethan nodded once completely. "I need to get married before noon." Her eyebrows shot up. "That is in." She glanced at the wall clock. "4 hours." "I know," his voice was calm, almost too calm. "If I do not, my father will go ahead with a merger that will force me to marry someone I do not love, someone who only wants control of my company. But if I am already legally married, that deal dies instantly." Mia exhaled sharply. "You want me to help you lie to your entire family and your board of directors?" "Not lie," Ethan said, leaning forward. "Help me survive. It will be a contract marriage. 1 week only. I will make sure you have a place to live, a new start, and $100,000 when it is over." Mia laughed. But it was not humor. It was disbelief. $100,000? You think money fixes everything? "No," Ethan said softly. "But it can give you choices again." She looked away, her eyes tracing the raindrops sliding down the window. Choices? The word felt foreign, like a luxury she had not owned in years. After a long pause, she whispered, "All right, let us say I agree. What are the rules?" Ethan reached into his briefcase and pulled out a thin folder. Inside was a crisp typed contract. He unfolded it carefully, smoothing the paper on the table. "Clause 1, he began. "This marriage will last exactly 7 days, effective from the moment the marriage license is signed. Clause 2, we will live together at my penthouse residence for that duration. Clause 3, separate bedrooms. No physical contact beyond what is necessary for public appearances." Mia raised an eyebrow. "You really typed that part, and I have lawyers," he replied. Clause 4, no media interviews or personal disclosures. Clause 5, after the 7th day, the marriage will be annulled, and you will receive full compensation. She scanned the papers with narrowed eyes. Her fingers trembled slightly, though she tried to hide it. "And what happens if one of us breaks the rules?" Ethan hesitated. Clause 6, he tapped a smaller line near the bottom. "If either party conceals their true identity or intentions, the contract becomes void." Danelle. The words hung in the air like static. Mia's eyes flicked to his face, but he was already looking out the window, lost in thought. She bit her lip. "And you are sure this is what you want?" He turned back to her. "It is not what I want, Mia. It is what I need." The honesty in his tone disarmed her more than the money ever could. Without another word, she picked up the pen from the holder beside the check and pressed it against the paper. Her name looked small and fragile beside his bold signature. When she slid the contract back across the table, Ethan studied it for a moment, then carefully folded it and tucked it into his jacket. "Come on," he said quietly, standing. "We have a courthouse to reach." Outside, the rain had stopped, leaving the streets gleaming under a pale morning sky. The city felt different, now quieter, as if holding its breath. Mia followed him to a black sedan, waiting by the curb. The driver opened the door, confusion flickering in his eyes at the sight of her, but Ethan only said, "She is with me." For the first time in a long while, Mia felt the warmth of a car heater and the softness of clean leather beneath her hands. It was strange, almost unreal, like she had stepped into someone else's life. They arrived at the courthouse just before noon. The clerk barely looked up as she processed the paperwork. The ceremony itself took less than 10 minutes. No music, no flowers, just the quiet echo of vows spoken between two strangers who had nothing to lose. When the officiant finally said, "You may exchange rings," Ethan slipped the diamond onto her finger. It was heavy, far too beautiful for her weathered hands. "Congratulations," the clerk said flatly, stamping the document. "You are now legally married." Mia looked down at her ring, the metal glinting under the fluorescent lights. Ethan glanced at her and gave a faint, unreadable smile. "Welcome to your new life, Mrs. Blake." She forced a breathless laugh, unsure whether to feel grateful or terrified. As they stepped outside, the city air hit her face, cool and alive. For the first time, she realized she was not running anymore. She was falling, and she did not yet know into what. The ride from the courthouse to Ethan's penthouse was silent, except for the faint hum of the engine and the rhythm of tires against wet asphalt. Mia sat beside him, her hands clasped in her lap, the ring still foreign on her finger. The world outside blurred by glass towers, traffic lights, umbrellas rushing past. Everything looked too clean, too expensive, like a dream she would wake from at any moment. Ethan glanced at her only once, catching the way she kept touching the ring as if to make sure it was real. "You do not have to be afraid," he said quietly. "I am not afraid," she answered, though her voice betrayed a small tremor. "Just out of place." His expression softened, but he said nothing more. When the elevator doors opened on the top floor, the world changed again. The penthouse was nothing like she imagined, glass walls framing the skyline. Polished marble floors that reflected the city lights and silence, so deep it almost felt sacred. A woman in a tailored black suit approached them. "Mr. Blake, welcome home. Everything is prepared as you requested." Her eyes flicked toward Mia, assessing, curious but polite. "This is Mrs. Blake," Ethan said simply. "Show her to the guest suite, please." The woman's composure did not falter, but her eyes widened just enough for Mia to notice. "Of course, sir. This way, ma'am." Mia followed her down a long hallway lined with paintings and bookshelves. The air smelled faintly of cedar and expensive cologne. The guest room she entered was larger than the entire shelter she had lived, in soft cream curtains, a bed like a cloud, and a view that stretched all the way to the Hudson River. "This will be your room," the housekeeper said. "Dinner is served at 7. Mr. Blake prefers punctuality." When the door closed, Mia stood still, her reflection caught in the floor-to-ceiling window. She looked small, like an imposter wearing someone else's name. She sat on the bed, running her fingers over the silk sheets. The contrast between this world and her old one was almost painful. On the nightstand lay a small envelope with her name written in careful handwriting. Inside, she found a note. "Welcome home. Remember our agreement. Separate rooms, 7 days, no questions." Below the signature, Ethan had added one more line. "If you need anything, ask Mrs. Green. And please do not wander into my study." Mia smiled faintly. "So he has rules for everything," she murmured. At dinner, she met him again across a long oak table that could seat 20. Candles glowed softly, and the faint sound of jazz played in the background. A private chef moved silently in and out, serving dishes that looked more like art than food. Ethan sat at the other end, composed, his posture straight, his tie gone, but his presence still commanding. "How is the room?" he asked. "Bigger than any place I have ever stayed," she said honestly. "Good." He cut into a steak with precise movements. "You can ask Mrs. Green if you need clothes or personal items. It is easier if you look the part. The part of your wife. The part of someone who belongs here?" The answer came quick, and for a second, she thought she saw a flicker of emotion behind his calm expression. "You really think clothes make someone belong?" she asked. Ethan looked up. "In my world, perception is everything." She leaned back, folding her arms. "That sounds exhausting." "It is," he admitted, his tone softer. "But it is the price of control." Mia's eyes lingered on him for a moment, seeing past the expensive watch and the perfect manners. There was a kind of loneliness in him, she recognized, the kind that came from fighting too long to survive. When dinner ended, he stood and gestured toward the hallway. "My office is off limits, but the rest of the apartment is yours. Tomorrow we have a public event, a charity gala. We will arrive together. It will make the marriage official in the public eye." "Do I need to pretend to be in love?" she asked lightly. He hesitated. "You need to look like someone who chose me." Her lips curved into a small, mischievous smile. "I can do that." Later that night, she walked through the quiet penthouse while Ethan retreated to his study. The city lights painted the floor in moving gold. She stopped near a wall of photographs Ethan as a child. Ethan shaking hands with world leaders. Ethan beside a woman who must have been his late mother. But one photo caught her eye. A younger Ethan standing beside his father, both smiling tightly at a press conference. The caption read, "Blake Holdings merges with Orion Hotels." Mia's breath caught. Orion Hotels. Her pulse quickened. IT was the same name from the building where her family once lived, the same company that vanished after the fire. She reached up and traced the logo in the corner of the frame. Behind her, Ethan's voice came quietly from the doorway. "You should get some rest. Big day tomorrow." She turned, startled. "I was just looking, did I know?" he said, his tone unreadable. "Just do not lose yourself in the past. It is heavier than it looks." Mia forced a nod, masking the storm rising inside her. As he walked away, the echo of his footsteps blended with the faint hum of the city. When she finally returned to her room, she sat by the window, staring at the skyline that shimmered like glass. In her palm, she held a small silver locket, tarnished, scratched. The only thing she had carried from her old life. She opened it, revealing a faded photo of two people she had lost long ago. For the first time, she realized Ethan Blake might not be the only one keeping secrets. Morning sunlight spilled through the tall glass windows, turning the penthouse into a quiet ocean of gold. Mia woke to the soft sound of city traffic below and the faint hum of a coffee machine somewhere down the hall. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then her eyes caught the ring on her finger and reality settled back in. She stood at the mirror, brushing her hair until it shone. The housekeeper, Mrs. Green, had already laid out an outfit on the bed, a pale blue dress, simple but elegant, and a pair of heels that looked impossible to walk in. A small note rested beside them. "Wear this for the fitting at 9. Mr. Blake has arranged a stylist for tonight's event." Mia smiled slightly. "Of course he did," she whispered. When she walked into the living room, Ethan was already there reading the morning paper, sleeves rolled up, a cup of black coffee steaming beside him. He looked up when he saw her. "Morning," he said, setting the paper down. "I hope you slept well." "I slept," she replied, still unsure how to act in a place where even silence felt expensive. "Good," he said. "We have a long day ahead. The charity gala starts at 7 o'clock. You will be introduced as my wife, so it is important you are prepared." Mia crossed her arms, half teasing, half serious. "Prepared to pretend?" He met her gaze, calm and unreadable. "Prepared to play your part. Try." The stylist arrived an hour later. A tall woman with bright red glasses and a confidence that filled the room. "So this is the mystery bride," she said cheerfully, circling Mia like an artist studying a canvas. "We have a lot of work to do, darling." For the next few hours, Mia endured hairpins, fabric fittings, and endless questions about jewelry. She had never been pampered like this before. Every touch felt foreign, every compliment strange, but when she finally looked into the mirror, she barely recognized herself. The woman staring back had glossy hair, a flowing gown the color of champagne, and eyes that carried quiet fire. Ethan appeared at the doorway just then. He paused, words catching in his throat. "You look," his voice softened, "perfect." Mia smiled faintly. "That is what your world demands, right?" "Perfection." He hesitated, then said quietly, "Not always. Sometimes it demands courage." "I'll see." The car ride to the Grand Lux Hotel was quiet. Outside, the city moved like a living thing. Lights flickering, horns blaring, raindrops still clinging to the edges of morning. Inside, Mia sat beside Ethan, feeling every heartbeat as if it were counting down to something she could not name. When they arrived, cameras flashed from every direction. The sound was deafening, shutters clicking, reporters shouting, people craning for a glimpse of the mysterious Mrs. Blake. Ethan stepped out first, adjusting his cuff links with effortless poise. Then he turned, offering his hand to her. "Ready?" She took it. "No," she whispered, "but I will act like I am." They walked through the grand entrance together, arm in arm. The chandelier above glittered like frozen starlight, and the crowd turned to watch as if a scene from a movie had just begun. Whispers followed them. "Who is she? Where did she come from?" "She is stunning, too." Mia tried to keep her head high, smiling when people greeted her, saying little, pretending she belonged. But when one reporter stepped forward and asked loudly, "Mr. Blake, how does it feel to marry a woman so suddenly?" Ethan's hand tightened around hers. He looked straight into the camera and said clearly, "It feels right." The crowd fell quiet, surprised by the conviction in his voice. Inside the ballroom, waiters moved like shadows between golden tables. Music swelled, laughter rose, and conversation filled the air. Mia followed Ethan from group to group, meeting board members, politicians, and investors. Every smile felt like a test. Every question was another chance to slip, but she did not. She listened, answered politely, and when one woman asked, "What drew you to Ethan?" Mia replied with a soft smile. "He did not look at me like a transaction." The woman blinked startled, then smiled back. Across the room, Ethan watched her, something shifting quietly in his expression. She was not the fragile stranger he had met under the rain. She was composed, sharp, alive. When the speeches began, Ethan took the stage. His voice carried easily through the hall, confident, deliberate, with just enough warmth to feel human. He spoke of charity, rebuilding, and giving second chances. Then, without warning, he glanced at her from the podium. "This year," he said, "has reminded me that sometimes the people who have the least give us the most. They remind us what gratitude really means." The audience applauded politely, but Mia's chest tightened. His words hit something deep inside her, a truth she was not ready to face. After the event, as the guests began to leave, Mia slipped onto the balcony to breathe. The city stretched below like a sea of lights. The cold air kissed her skin. For the first time that night, she could hear her own heartbeat again. Behind her, the door opened softly. Ethan stepped out, his jacket over his arm. "You handled yourself well," he said. "Thank you," she replied. "For a few hours, I almost forgot who I was." He looked at her, eyes thoughtful. "Maybe that is not a bad thing." Mia turned back to the skyline. "Or maybe it is," she said quietly, because sooner or later, the truth always comes back. So he did not answer, but his gaze lingered on her longer than it should have. Somewhere deep down, he knew she was not just pretending, and neither was he. The wind picked up, carrying the sound of the city far below. Two strangers stood side by side under the glow of the skyline, bound by a contract, yet already breaking every rule it held. The morning after, the gala arrived quietly, with pale sunlight crawling across the penthouse floor. The event had made every headline in the city. Photos of Ethan and Mia hand in hand, smiling beneath chandeliers, covered every major news site. The world was talking about them, and for the first time, Mia understood what it meant to live under the weight of someone else's spotlight. She stood by the window reading the headlines on her phone. "Blake's mysterious bride captivates Manhattan." Another one read, "Who is Mrs. Blake?" Rumors swirl around the city's most secretive marriage. Prolled, Ethan entered the room, still in his gray morning suit, holding 2 cups of coffee. "You should not read those," he said. They never stopped guessing. Mia smiled faintly. "I am not sure what is worse, the lies they make up or how easily people believe them." He handed her a cup. "It will pass. It always does." She took a sip. "Does it really?" He hesitated before answering. "Sometimes if you learn how to stop caring." Mia studied his face. "You sound like someone who's been practicing that for a long time." He gave a small, tired smile. "You learn quickly when everyone wants a piece of you." For a moment, the air between them softened. He looked at her, not at her dress, not at the ring, but at her eyes, and something unspoken lingered there. The intercom buzzed suddenly, breaking the quiet. Mrs. Green's voice came through. "Mr. Blake, the board meeting begins in 30 minutes. The directors are already waiting in the conference room." Ethan sighed, setting his cup down. "Duty calls." Before he left, he paused. "Will you be here when I get back?" "Where else would I go?" she said lightly. He nodded once, as if the answer meant more than it should, then disappeared into the hallway. Mia spent the next few hours exploring the apartment again. She found herself drawn back to the photographs on the wall, the ones showing Ethan's family, his childhood, the beginnings of Blake Holdings. Every picture felt like a glimpse into a life too polished to be real. Then her eyes caught the same logo again, Orion Hotels, the name from her past, the company that vanished after the fire. Her heart started to race. She leaned closer to the photo, tracing the embossed letters. Orion, she whispered. So that is where you came from. See, her mind spiraled back to that night years ago. The smell of smoke, the heat, her parents shouting her name. She had barely escaped. The world thought she had died, and part of her had let it stay that way. Now standing in Ethan Blake's penthouse, staring at the name of the company that had absorbed her father's empire, she understood something she was not ready to face. This man she had married, even if by contract, might be connected to the very loss that had destroyed her life. By the time Ethan returned that evening, she was sitting on the sofa, quiet but tense. He loosened his tie and poured himself a drink. You survived the day without setting the place on fire, he joked. She smiled faintly. Almost, he poured another glass and handed it to her. We made it through the first public test. The board is calmer now. They think I am finally settled. Do you like that? She asked. Being settled? He looked out the window. I like the illusion of control.
Me?
You talk about control like it is a cage you built yourself, she said softly. He turned to her, eyes narrowing slightly. What makes you think it is not? Mia set her glass down, heart pounding. Because people who build cages usually forget they are standing inside. For a moment, neither spoke. The city lights danced across the glass walls, flickering like embers. Then Ethan's phone vibrated. He glanced at the screen, his jaw tightening. It is my father, he muttered. He has never liked surprises, and apparently marrying you counts as one. He stepped aside to take the call, his voice low but firm. Mia could not hear the words, but she could see the tension in his shoulders. When he hung up, he stood there quiet, staring at nothing. What did he say? She asked. He exhaled sharply. He is calling an emergency press conference. He wants to question the legitimacy of our marriage. He thinks I have lost control, tumbling now. Are you going to fight him? Ethan looked up, a spark of fire in his eyes. I have been fighting him my entire life. He crossed the room and stopped in front of her. Tomorrow you will come with me to the meeting. They will try to humiliate us, but we will stand together. Understand? Mia nodded slowly. Together? She repeated, though her voice carried the weight of something deeper. Fear, guilt, maybe both. When Ethan left for his study, Mia sat there in the fading light, her mind racing. He was preparing for war with his father, but he did not know he was already living with a ghost from the same world that had made him powerful. She took the silver locket from her pocket and opened it again. Inside was a faded picture, her parents standing in front of an Orion Hotels banner, smiling in the sunday. The same logo that now hung on Ethan's wall. Tears welled in her eyes as she whispered to herself. What are you hiding, Ethan Blake? And what will you do when you learn who I really am? Outside, thunder rumbled in the distance, rolling across the skyline. Inside, two secrets were beginning to circle each other. One born from power, the other from survival. Neither of them knew that by the end of the week, both would shatter everything they thought they knew about love, trust, and the price of truth. The next morning arrived with gray skies pressing against the city's skyline. Ethan stood by the tall windows of his office, staring down at the traffic far below. He had not slept much. The conversation with his father still echoed in his mind, a familiar battle he thought he had left behind. But this time it was different. This time, Mia was part of it. He turned when he heard soft footsteps behind him. Mia entered quietly, dressed in a cream-colored suit that Mrs. Green had chosen for her. She looked composed, but her fingers twisted together nervously. Are you ready? Ethan asked. As ready as I can be for a room full of people who probably want me gone, she replied with a small smile. He almost smiled back. You will be fine. Just stay close to me. Answer nothing. And let me handle it. I am good at pretending, she said softly. He studied her for a second, longer than necessary. I have noticed. The elevator doors opened to the main conference floor of Blake Holdings. Cameras flashed immediately. Board members, reporters, and assistants filled the space. Ethan straightened his tie and guided Mia forward. She felt every gaze, every whisper cutting through the air like static. Inside the boardroom, his father, Charles Blake, sat at the head of the table. His silver hair and sharp eyes mirrored Ethan's, but there was no warmth in them. "So, this is the woman you married," Charles said, his tone cold. "Quite the choice." Ethan took a seat beside Mia. "You wanted proof that I am capable of making decisions on my own. Well, here it is." Charles leaned forward. "This decision jeopardizes our family's reputation. You married a stranger without a background check, without any consideration for the company." Mia sat still, eyes on the polished table. Every instinct pulled her to disappear, but she stayed silent. "Her name is Mia Collins," Ethan said evenly. "And she is my wife. That is all the company needs to know." "Collins?" Charles frowned. "I know that name." Mia's heart skipped a beat, but she kept her expression steady. "It is a common name," she said softly. Charles's gaze lingered on her. Suspicious, but unsure. "I will not allow personal chaos to threaten business stability. If this marriage causes scandal, I will remove you from the board, Ethan." Ethan's jaw tightened. "You can try." Hullery. The room fell silent. Every executive shifted uncomfortably. The tension was thick enough to cut. Finally, Charles stood. "Very well. But remember, I built this empire before you could even spell your name. Do not destroy it for a woman you barely know." He walked out, the echo of his shoes fading into the marble hallway. Mia exhaled, realizing she had been holding her breath the entire time. "That went well," she muttered. Ethan turned to her, still angry, but calm on the surface. "He will try again. He always does." They left the building together. Outside, the air smelled of rain and exhaust. Reporters swarmed them instantly, microphones and cameras flashing. "Mr. Blake, who is your wife, really? Mrs. Blake, were you a model, an actress? Is your marriage a publicity stunt?" Ethan wrapped an arm around Mia's shoulders, shielding her from the lights. "No comments," he said firmly, guiding her toward the car. When the doors closed, the noise vanished, replaced by the soft hum of the engine. Mia stared out the window, her reflection blending with the city lights. "You did not have to defend me like that," she said quietly. "Yes, I did," he replied. "They think money gives them permission to dissect people. I will not let them do that to you." His words settled between them like warmth in winter. Back at the penthouse, the evening unfolded quietly. The storm had rolled in again, and rain tapped against the windows like a familiar rhythm. Ethan sat at his piano playing a slow, haunting tune. Mia listened from across the room, the melody pulling her closer until she stood beside him. "I did not know you played," she said. He looked up, fingers still moving across the keys. "It helps me think." "It sounds lonely," she murmured. "It is," he admitted. "But tonight it does not feel that way." "OM." For the first time he smiled. A real one, small and unguarded. The air between them shifted, heavy but gentle. Mia could feel her heart pounding, not from fear this time, but from something far more dangerous. She turned away before he could see the emotion in her face. "I will make some tea," she said. As she walked to the kitchen, her phone buzzed with an unknown number. Hesitant, she answered. "Mia Collins," a deep voice said. "This is Detective Harris, NYPD Cold Case Division. We have reopened the investigation into the Orion Hotel's fire. I believe you might be related to one of the victims. We would like to confirm your identity." Her knees nearly gave out. She gripped the counter, whispering, "You must have the wrong person." "I do not think so," the detective replied. "We found evidence that one survivor disappeared that night. A young woman, aged 26 now, named Mia Collins. The call ended before she could respond. Her hands shook. Behind her, Ethan's piano music stopped. He called out, "Mia, everything all right?" She forced her voice steady. "Yes, just tired." She hung up, staring at her reflection in the black glass of the window. The truth she had buried was clawing its way back, And now, living under the same roof as the man whose company once consumed her family's, she realized time was running out. Outside, thunder cracked over the city loud enough to shake the floor. Inside, Mia closed her eyes, clutching the locket in her hand, whispering the same words she had said as a child in the burning house years ago. Please let no one else get hurt because of me. The storm lingered through the night, washing the city in gray. By morning, the air felt heavier, as if the sky itself knew that something was about to break. Mia barely slept. The detective's call kept echoing in her head, his voice replaying every few minutes like a warning she could not silence. When she entered the kitchen, Ethan was already there, standing by the counter in his white shirt, sleeves rolled up, coffee in hand. He looked tired, but calm. The kind of calm that came from years of hiding everything behind control. Did you rest at all? He asked without looking up. Not much, she admitted. He nodded slowly. Neither did I. Father wants another meeting tonight. He says there is new information coming out. Something about you buying host stem. Her pulse spiked, but she forced her voice to stay level. About me. Someone has been digging into your background. He said they claimed there are no official records for Mia Collins before 3 years ago. Nothing, no address, no job history, nothing at all. I told them they were wrong. Her throat tightened. And what if they're not wrong? Ethan's gaze lifted from his cup, sharp and steady. Then tell me who you really are. The silence that followed was unbearable. Mia's fingers trembled as she set her glass down. You would not believe me, she whispered. Try me, he said. She looked at him then, her eyes glistening with fear and exhaustion. 3 years ago, there was a fire at an Orion Hotel's property outside the city. My parents owned it. Everyone believed I died that night, but I did not. I ran and I changed my name, disappeared, and never looked back. Ethan froze, the name hitting him like a physical blow. Orion Hotels, he repeated quietly. My company Blake Holdings absorbed Orion after the fire. My father negotiated the deal. She nodded. I know. He stepped back, disbelief cutting through his features. You have been hiding this from me the entire time. I did not plan to. I just wanted to survive. When I met you, I did not even know who you were until I saw that photo in your hall. Ethan's jaw clenched. So what is this? Revenge? Some twisted way to get back at my family? No, she cried. It was never about that. I did not even know until it was too late. He turned away, pacing near the window. The storm outside mirrored the one building inside him. You should have told me. Mia, I defended you in front of everyone. I trusted you. Tears welled in her eyes. You said this marriage was about pretending. You never asked for truth. He stopped walking, his voice low and trembling. I asked for honesty. There is a difference. For a long time, neither of them spoke. The only sound was the steady rhythm of rain against glass. Finally, Ethan said quietly, the press conference tonight. It will destroy everything if they find out. I need to control this before my father does. Mia swallowed hard. What will you do? I do not know yet, he said. But right now, you need to stay out of sight. No interviews, no appearances. If anyone asks, you are unwell. Understood? She nodded, though her heart ached at the distance growing between them. Ethan, I never wanted to hurt you. He met her eyes, the warmth from before now replaced with quiet pain. You already did. He walked past her, grabbing his jacket, and disappeared into the hallway. The front door closed with a soft but final click. Mia stood alone, staring at the empty room. The world outside was still drenched in rain, but the silence inside was worse. She looked down at the ring on her finger, its brilliance suddenly cold, and whispered to herself, You wanted the truth, Ethan. But the truth always burns. The rain had finally stopped, but the silence that followed felt even heavier. Inside the penthouse, the air still carried Ethan's words, sharp and cold. You already did. Mia sat motionless by the window, staring at the skyline. The storm outside had ended, but the one inside her had not. Hours passed before she stood up. The city below kept moving, taxis, people, lights, but she felt frozen in place. She knew she could not stay there. Ethan's father would not let this go, and once the truth surfaced, it would destroy them both. She opened the drawer, took out her locket, and slipped it around her neck. Then she removed the ring from her finger and placed it gently on the coffee table beside a note. Her voice trembled as she whispered into the empty room. "I am sorry, Ethan. Though to you downstairs." She walked into the streets without looking back. The phone in her pocket buzzed again. Detective Harris's number flashed across the screen. "Mia Collins," his voice said. "I need you to listen carefully. The Orion Hotel's fire, it was not an accident. We found documents linking it to a corporate acquisition. Someone wanted your family's company gone." Her chest tightened. "Who?" There was a pause before he replied. "The deal was signed by Charles Blake. You know, come." The sound of traffic blurred around her. "Ethan's father," she whispered. "Yes, ma'am," the detective confirmed. "We believe evidence was destroyed that night. If you are ready to come forward, we can reopen the case." Mia ended the call without another word. The city lights flickered through her tears. The man she loved was the son of the man who had destroyed her family. At that same hour, Ethan stood before a wall of reporters. His father's press conference had turned into an ambush about Mia's background. Ethan tore up the prepared speech and spoke instead from the heart. "My marriage to Mia Collins was my choice. Whatever she came from, she has more integrity than most of the people in this room." Charles Blake's face hardened, but Ethan did not stop. "I will protect her with or without this company." Later, when he returned home, the penthouse was dark. Only the city lights spilled across the floor. Then he saw at the ring glinting on the table and the folded note beside it. He unfolded the paper. "I cannot let my past destroy your future. Thank you for 7 days that felt real." Ethan stood still, the note trembling in his hands. The storm had passed, but it had taken her with it. He whispered into the empty room. "Mia, where are you?" 3 months passed before Ethan saw her again. The story had exploded across every headline. The Blake marriage scandal, runaway wife, vanishes after revelation. But while the media moved on, Ethan did not. He had searched every shelter, every hospital, every quiet corner of the city where she might have gone. Nothing. Until one morning a letter arrived at his office. No return address, just a familiar handwriting. Inside was a single line that if you still believe in second chances, come to the community center on 12th Street. Oh. He went that afternoon. The old brick building was small, newly painted with a sign that read "Shelter to Start Foundation." Through the glass doors, he saw volunteers serving food, children drawing, and in the center of it all, Mia. She was laughing with an elderly man. Her hair tied back, a worn apron around her waist. She looked different, lighter, steadier, but still completely her. When she noticed him, the laughter faded. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then she stepped forward. "You found me." "I never stopped looking," Ethan said. Mia lowered her eyes. "I did what I had to. The investigation is open again. They know your father's part in the Orion fire." "I know," he said quietly, he confessed. "He made deals that destroyed families, including yours. But you were right, Mia. The truth needed to come out." She exhaled, tears forming. "And you? What did it cost you?" "Everything I built," Ethan admitted. "But maybe that was the price for freedom." She smiled faintly. "Freedom is not the same as being alone." He took a step closer. "Then let me start over with you. No contracts, no secrets." Mia hesitated, searching his face for the man she once doubted. But the arrogance was gone. What stood before her now was just Ethan, tired, honest, and real. Behind them, children's laughter echoed through the hall. She looked around at the people they were helping and said softly, "This is what I wanted to build something good out of what was lost." Ethan reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Inside was the same ring she had left behind, its surface now scratched, but shining in the afternoon light. "This time, I am not asking for 7 days," he said. "I am asking for forever." Mia's eyes filled with tears. "I never needed forever," she whispered. "Just someone who would not run when things got hard." He smiled and slipped the ring onto her finger once more. Around them, the city noise faded, replaced by quiet applause from the volunteers who had stopped to watch. The sun broke through the clouds, flooding the room with light. Ethan pulled her close and whispered, "No contracts, no lies, just us." And for the first time, both of them believed.